Okay, looks like we are on. Good afternoon. This is a hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on September 14th, 2022, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations. My name is Bob Rawls, and I serve as the chair. Hearings are broadcast live on Channel 18 and are also recorded for the on-demand archives available on the town's website. Today's hearing is being conducted in person, by phone, and by video conference. The agenda, instructions on how to attend, and copies of documents for review are posted on the town's website. To all participants, after hearing from applicants, representatives, and interested parties, I'll ask for comments and questions from commissioners. Whether attending by phone or online, please remain muted unless you are speaking. If you're attending by phone and wish to speak, use *6 to unmute and address the chair, and then use *6 again to unmute or to mute. If you're online and you're not a commissioner, please keep your camera and microphone off unless you have been recognized. Indicate that you wish to speak by using the raise hand feature. When recognized, please identify yourself for the record. The commission will vote on each matter by roll call so that we have a record of a quorum. I'll now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Bob Del Vecchio.
Present.
Janet Williams.
Present.
Karen Latin.
Present.
Mary Sullivan is often online, but I don't see her now, so she is not here at the moment. Elise Gordon.
Present.
Cheryl Meservey is away, I believe, and I am here, so we do have a quorum. This is the second Wednesday of the month, and normally we would have to end at 4:30, but apparently we don't have to do that today. So, but we're still going to try to move things along. So Nikki Smith, Chatham's conservation agent, will now lead us through the agenda.
I know. The first application is for a request for determination of applicability for 9 Windmill Lane, Andrew Greenwald, map 16A, parcel 14H10, conversion of an existing first floor deck to a porch area with a second floor deck constructed above, and the conversion of an existing screen porch to an enclosed sunroom. And I will share the plan unless John wants to.
Good afternoon, through the chair, John O'Reilly.
Yes, please.
If you could share the plan, Nikki, that'd be fine. The request for determination is just as Nikki said, conversion of a deck to a porch, open porch with a second floor deck above it, and then converting the screen room to a more three-season room with glass. And I've attached the architectural plans that outline the changes. There is no change in footprint. There is no fill proposed. There's no, other than the actual physically doing the work, the disturbance to the lot will be minimal. The resource we're dealing with here is a floodplain with a base floodplain elevation of 13. We do have a wetland BVW across the road to the northwest, and I've labeled the 50 and the 100-foot buffer zone. You can see that we're not doing any work within that area. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Open it up. Anybody? Questions? None whatsoever? All right. No?
I have
Okay.
2 quick questions for you, John. One is, when you enclose the existing deck and put a deck above it, will that change any of the stormwater runoff in that area? Is there a dry well or a
Yes,
to capture it?
we were. I'm sorry. Through the chair, we were involved with the previous owner that constructed this house that replaced an older cottage. And there is once the porch is constructed, there will be the deck there on the second floor, and that deck will contain a membrane. I do touch on this on my cover letter. We will direct that membrane into a gutter and then connect it to the existing dry well system that was originally installed.
Okay.
So there is a change in building coverage, which is the deck, the porch. But knowing what we put in for dry well, I think a simple connection of the membrane to gutter downspout will take care of that additional square footage.
Okay. And just as an administrative matter, was a certificate of occupancy issued on the permit for the construction of the house?
Yes, it's a home now, and it was actually closed out by the Conservation Commission in 2013.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Bob, nothing? I do have a question about, you said the foundation plants will be returned to their original state, numbers, condition, et cetera?
Yes.
Okay.
The landscape that's on the plan was approved, was all part of the original approval of the house reconstruction. And we would simply be, if the plants need to be moved, they'd be temporarily transplanted, just off to the side, protected, and the work done, and then replanted.
Okay. All right. Any concerns? I don't hear any concerns, so.
I just had one question
Okay.
on the note about the vertical slats with spaces. Do you have an approximate spacing in mind?
Is this on the lattice work underneath the deck? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, correct. So I just want to make sure that water can be absorbed through those slats in a flood event or.
That's a great question. I would assume that the lattice would need to be compliant with the flood requirements of the building code.
Okay,
And you could certainly, I can't remember if this commission conditions RDAs or not, but you could certainly put that, I can put that as a note that the lattice needs to be conforming. It's just open your standard lattice work with the 1.5 squares.
all right, I'm good with that. I can
Thank you.
do a cover letter, and we have, that spot for conditions, so I can put that in there.
Okay, thank you.
So this would be an RDA of the, which type?
-2, because it is actually in the resource area because it's flood zone.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the -2 request for determination of applicability for 9 Windmill Lane.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
and I vote aye. I don't think Mary is here yet.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
The next application is another request for determination of applicability for 303 Forest Beach Road, Sandra Dalby, map 3B, parcel 16, installation of a Title V soil absorption system.
Good afternoon, David Clark, Clark Engineering. As stated, this is an upgrade of a septic system that's failed. You saw this project in 2016, or for those of you who were here in 2016. It was a demo rebuild. We were hired through the builder and an architect, and we had suggested that the system be upgraded at that time because it was a single elderly person living there for a number of years, and even though it passed the inspection, it might not last long. Well, it didn't last long. So they said there was no money in the budget. So here we are. Fortunately, the house placement had no impact on the location of the system. We have it as far away from the resource area as possible. And this is just a replacement of the leaching field. The tank, septic tank was upgraded when the house was reconstructed because the old tank was in the way. It's primarily within the driveway. It's been designed to handle vehicle loads. No trees have to come out, no overdigs required because it's suitable soils all around at the depth of the leach field. So it should be a quick and easy installation to get this in.
Okay.
And I am aware that there's still an outstanding order of conditions for the house construction, and the owners are aware of that. They weren't aware of it when they first contracted us to design the system, but they are now, and they're working towards getting back before you to take care of that.
Okay. I don't know if we were aware of that, but Nikki's pulling through her files just while she's
Yeah.
doing that.
We got an email from Crystal,
Okay,
so she picked it up too.
okay. So is there an issue with approving RDA where there's an open order of conditions?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Because it doesn't get a number, an SE number.
Right.
Do you know what, just out of curiosity, what the date was? I know that it was open still, but I
It
didn't.
was 2016, so it's expired even
Okay.
with,
If you would like, I can, when is your installation date for the septic?
as soon
Do
as
you-
possible, because it is failed. They've pumped it
Okay.
a number of times this summer.
Yeah, so, in this case, especially because it's a failed septic system, I don't have concern with it. And being that they do know that they do need to close it out. If it wasn't a failed septic system, I would say we would hold off on issuing the RDA until we got a request for a certificate of compliance at least. But in this case, because it is failed and, it's environmentally and health department.
Yeah, it's
Detriment.
something of an emergency
Yes.
situation,
Yep.
so. But can you assure us, David, that,
Oh, like I said, they are aware of it,
Okay.
and they were a little miffed that the builder didn't notify them, because when they took possession of the house after construction, they thought they were all set with
Yeah.
having an occupancy permit.
Okay. all right,
And I will just add, because I know it's going to come up, the shed was on a Conservation Department-approved notice of intent from 2016, I believe. So, but the garden, there's no evidence that that was ever approved.
so the shed's in the clear.
The shed, I mean, it was
It was,
on an approved
Oh.
plan from 2016. Was it ever actually approved by us? No, but it was on a plan.
an approved plan.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So it was not caught in the past, if you will.
Or maybe it was intentional to include, I don't know. See that Mary is with us. So, actually, I think about half of the projects that we're going to be hearing about today, we see vegetable gardens in resource areas. So we have to sort of wrap our heads around what that means for us. But
We also, when we did the sites, updated the conditions for this plan, we did mention that the garden wasn't on the approved plan. And
you say that it wasn't?
it wasn't on the approved plan, right?
Right.
And the owners both said that, I said the commission might have issues with it, especially if it's not being managed in an environmentally friendly manner. And she said, Mrs. Dalby did say that they do practice organic farming, and it was turf lawn before they put the garden in. And there was not a raised bed garden or a confined garden like this before, but there was some semblance of somebody planting, the previous owner using that area as garden
As a
space.
garden as well.
But it wasn't formal like this.
Yes, so probably should need to talk about this as a group at some point, but how would you feel about ARs for after-the-fact gardens?
I would be fine with that as long as it was, I mean, I would do the conditions that there was no fertilizer. I think at this point, most people are aware of the irrigation issues, so it would be hand watering. And, yeah, I mean, for example, this one on the screen, it's very minimal. Animals can still get around it, that kind of thing. So I would be fine with an AR for these, as long as they remained in a, a smaller state like this particular one and didn't become, a greenhouse or a huge fenced-in,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
stays.
I did tell the owners today that if it becomes an issue, fortunately, the order is still open and it can be addressed, even though it's expired. You're still required to get the certificate of compliance, and if there might be an opportunity to work it into that, so.
Yeah, so for the certificate of compliance, we could have conditions there.
Can we issue a new condition in a certificate? Can we include new conditions in a certificate of compliance that weren't in the original order?
I've seen it done many times.
Yeah, I don't see why
Haven't-
not. Okay,
yeah.
so we could address it then.
What would be the better way, through a standalone AR or through, in this case?
I would prefer the certificate of
Certificate,
compliance.
okay.
It's a little more substantive,
Yeah.
if you will.
So, yeah, as I said, we're going to hear about this a lot today. And everyone so far has said, yes, we're organic. And of course, there's no way for us to ever verify it. And there's no way to make sure that happens if a property changes hands and so forth. So it's good to hear it. It's hard to know for sure. What is its environmental impact? It does have a fence, but in most cases, it does not seem to constrain a wildlife movement because they can go all around it. So in this particular case, yeah, David, on your suggestion, if you could address it in the COC. Other than that, anything else for this? Okay.
I will say, just as guidance in the future, I would not approve an AR for one in the actual resource area. It would have to be a little, at least, I have no problem with gardens, but it would be outside of the top of coastal bank flood zone area there, so.
So that is this one, right?
I'm sorry?
That would be this one.
Yes, I mean, it is in the floodplain coastal bank. So in general, in ARs, I would not
You would
approve that, but in this particular case, because I do believe it was just lawn, and I don't see a big deal with it, but that's just for future reference, I guess.
Yeah, it's a question of precedence too.
Right.
Allowing a garden in the resources requires a higher level of scrutiny from us, especially if there's room in the buffer zone for it.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, can they move it out? I mean, if we said that, it looks like if they moved it more toward the shed or, something, it wouldn't be in the floodplain and,
I will ask them.
This, is there a spot for it that's out of the floodplain here? There is.
well, it looks like above the shed, above, I don't know what direction.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like, it looks like it's just sort of scrubby lawn
Yeah.
over there, and it's very sunny, so I don't see why it wouldn't be a problem.
We can have the conversation, and then we can deal with it in more depth at COC time. But, just convey to them the issue, is it's an unpermitted garden right on the bank. It's not something we would approve on the face of it.
Well, I think if we had asked back when we were permitting the house, we would have had a better shot at it.
Maybe.
Well, because they gave up a substantial driveway, a second driveway off of
Yeah,
Forest Beach Road. And so I think with all that mitigation, we probably could have worked something
yeah.
out at that time, too.
And it's good to have these gardens on the books, just in term, from an irrigation perspective, which is not primarily our concern. It is the town's concern, especially in these times. So it's good to know about them, good to have them recorded. Okay. You got a question?
I got one question, Bob. Actually, two. The silver maples, David, are near that leaching area. How will the silver maples affect the leaching facility, the roots?
They'll probably work their way over there. I don't see it being a problem long-term, in that I've got, at my house, I've got trees right next to it that are doing fine, and the sepsis, the system's doing fine, so, and that's 24 years now, so.
Okay, well, how will the leaching facility affect the maples when that is excavated? I mean, you're obviously gonna have to cut some roots. Is there any way to position it further away from those trees, those big trees?
Well, the only way to get it further away is to get it closer to the top of the bank.
Because I see those trees taking a real hit from the excavation, you know. They're pretty nice trees, too.
They'll enjoy the nutrients.
Yeah.
They will enjoy the
Especially,
nutrients. Yeah.
especially a summer like this.
There's no way to reposition that at all, away from them? Especially the one to the, what is it, the south? Yeah, the one to the
Yeah,
south is
that's-
closer.
Yeah, the only way to get away from the one from the south is to move it to the east, closer to the bank. And we went to Board of Health on Monday on this, and they approved the 40-foot variance.
Okay, just a concern, that's all. Hopefully they'll be okay.
Okay.
This is a -2 as well, Nikki?
This would be -3.
-3, okay.
We're gonna have to learn how to do that one day.
I'll make a motion that we approve a -3 determination of applicability for 303 Forest Beach Road.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
All right, the next one is a request for determination of applicability for 403 Old Comers Road, Joshua Zuckerman, map 10I, parcel 3, construction of a 26-square-foot addition to be supported by a pier, no foundation, existing generator and AC units to be relocated.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Sequin. I'm representing Josh Zuckerman, who is the owner of the property at 403 Old Comers Road. The property has a bordering vegetated wetland on Stillwater Pond. The pond also lies within land subject to coastal storm flowage, and in this case, the flood contour is by definition the top of the coastal bank. Virtually, the entire property is within the 100-foot buffer. Off the property to the east, there is a ditch that connects Lover's Lake and Stillwater Pond, and that's considered a river. We've shown the 200-foot riverfront boundary, which covers a portion of the property, and the property is also within the Pleasant Bay ACEC. Back in 2017, there was an order of conditions issued to allow an addition and expansion to the house. That work has been completed. It also included the upgrade of the septic system, which now includes an IA component for nitrogen reduction. And there is a certificate of compliance for that work. What we're proposing now is Josh wants to update his kitchen, and in looking at the layout, they would really like to get square off the existing, the southwest corner of the building. There's a 6.5 foot by 4 foot jog in the building that they just want to bump out to square that corner off. So it is an additional 26 square feet of building. It is located within an area that currently has 2 AC units and a generator, and it's, the ground just has stones surrounding those mechanical units. So there's no native or any vegetation really that's going to be disturbed in order to construct this addition. And it will be constructed on a pier, on a diamond pier, so there's no foundation excavation necessary. It's essentially, the work will be done by hand. Access to the work area will be from the existing driveway across the front of the house, and can be done very, very simply. The AC units and generator will have to be relocated to make room for the addition, and then reconnected to the building. So there will be some trenching involved with reconnecting the AC units and the generator. But other than that, no excavation necessary. As mitigation for the additional building area, we are proposing 3 sweet pepper bush to be planted down adjacent to the existing buffer plantings down by the pond. I included the construction notes and a construction protocol showing a limit of work and specifying a fabric silt fence to be installed along the limit of work just to contain the work area. Crushed stone at the drip line will be used to contain the roof runoff from the addition, and any disturbed areas would be revegetated with a native grass mix. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question, Stephanie. Do you know where the generator and air conditioning units are being relocated to?
They're shown on the
Are
plan.
those 2 up by the shower enclosure then?
Yes.
that-
So they're, the existing ones are shown as like lightly dashed lines.
Yep.
And then the proposed ones are in a bolder, solid line.
So they're just shifting to the south, basically?
Toward the
so
road,
I see
yes.
that. Okay, got it, thank you.
And I actually looked at, I just stopped to see, on my way over here, to see where the stake for the addition is. He may actually be able to keep the generator where it is, because it's beyond where the addition is going.
Karen?
Thank you.
But I thought, I had the same question, but I thought a generator has to be 5 feet from a building. And if he leaves the generator there, that's
That
not
would be
5
too
feet.
close. Okay, so I guess it would, but we are showing it moving forward toward the road.
It's 5. I'm doing it.
You happen to be doing it at the current time. Okay. Anyone else? I guess I will mention, I didn't realize that there were mitigation plans until I saw the plan. So I don't think it's mentioned in the text, just as a procedural thing.
So, I'm sorry, what?
I hadn't realized that there were mitigation plans being offered until I looked at the.
They're labeled,
It is in the text. I missed it. Never mind. I withdraw my comment. So, all right. Any other comments, concerns about this? Okay.
And what negative number?
This is not in flood zone, correct?
it is not.
Then it would be -3.
Make a motion that we approve a determination of applicability for -3 determination of applicability for 403 Old Comers Road.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay, thank you very much.
I suppose you could, Nikki, draw us up a little cheat sheet for those. That way we wouldn't have to,
Yeah, I can definitely do that. I used to have one back in my heyday.
yeah. Because we never had to do that until you became the agent, and it was always just an RDA,
Oh.
yes or no. We never
Yeah,
had to
so
do,
it's- I mean, there's up to positive 4 or 5 and negative.
Oh, goodness, all right.
4 to 5 or something like that, depending on whether we request that they do an NOI, if it's in the flood zone, or if it's in a resource area, if it's not in a resource area. Yeah, so I can do that cheap.
yeah, Bob would appreciate it. He would,
Yeah, no problem. I will find that for you. And now we are on to 37, a request for order of conditions for 37 Clamshell Drive, O Real Estate Trust, map 16A, parcel H76, SE 103551, demo of the existing dwelling and construction of a new dwelling, and the applicant has requested a continuation to October 5th of 2022.
I'll move that we continue 37 Clamshell Drive, order of conditions, until October 5th, 2022.
Latin second.
roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Next, we have the order of conditions for 34 Scattery Road, Garland S. Alcock, trustee, map 16I, parcel 32-2, SE 103576, restoration of unauthorized clearing. So if you recall, you approved this a couple meetings ago, but there was a check issue, so Lynn Hamlin finally just paid with a credit card, and they finally issued a number last night, so I put that in the Dropbox this morning. She had no comments other than she just wanted to make sure that, sorry, pulling it up. The condition that's stated, the view corridor is to be maintained via vegetation that does not need to be pruned with no active management other than invasive removal. She just wanted to say this is fine as long as it doesn't preclude the ability to file for pruning years down the road, which it doesn't. They can apply for a permit to do view pruning anytime they want.
Right,
We can deny or approve it,
yep,
but no.
So-
So this condition does not preclude
right. So there's no
being
reason,
able to file for something.
no reason to strike it then.
Right. And then she had a few, just technical stuff that, I haven't gone completely through because I didn't get it until about noon. But when I glanced through it, it didn't seem like anything,
Okay.
Commas and ands,
Oh, okay.
add
all right.
engineer versus,
Nothing's,
landscape specialist or something, because there's not
Right.
technically an engineer on this project, that kind of thing.
nothing in regard to findings or special conditions.
I have a question following up on what you were just talking about. So you have the finding in there that the proposed view corridor is to be maintained by a vegetation that doesn't need to be pruned, which strikes me as a condition, but would that be problematic to add that as a condition?
I see what you're saying.
We could add after something like that, however, it would not, this does not preclude applicant from applying for
Yeah,
permission to prune as appropriate or whatever.
I think that's
I think it's a good special condition to have in there, but yeah, adding that little,
add that
Clause,
you may apply in the future for,
that will alleviate her concerns.
Yeah.
I have a couple things.
Okay, Karen.
Do we need in the resource areas grid, do we need to add bordering vegetated wetland?
oh, yes, I meant to do that.
Okay. And then
And
in the,
while we're there, do we also need an aura?
Oh, is that out too?
the what?
Aura?
Oh, yeah. Then, in the findings, I didn't know if we wanted to add that there will be 12 trees removed. And they are,
No.
12 trees have already
They
been
have
removed.
already
well,
been removed.
true. But if, we could say 12 trees were removed, and then in the special conditions, I was wondering if we wanted to put that they are replacing those 12 trees, and they're also putting 50 native shrubs,
Yes.
because
yeah.
often we do
We
say
often
that.
point out the actual mitigation.
Yeah, and then,
There's 14 trees being added.
in the special conditions, I had a note that they're gonna protect the northwest side with a small fence to the edge of the pathway.
I thought they're gonna put a split rail along the
Yeah,
path.
small fence to the edge of the pathway. I thought maybe we needed to add that.
Yep.
Okay,
Wait, where's that?
I think I had it as a special condition, they're gonna add a split rail along the path to the water.
yeah. That's essentially what I just. And I'm assuming in the view corridors, the specific conditions in number 2, I'm assuming that located along, they had pointed out that it needed a space between it, located and along. The permanent markers shall be located along the view corridor lines to delineate the view corridor. Well, located along is all one word in this.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So we just need a space.
Where is that? No, where's that? Not which number?
Special condition 2, view corridor, conditions.
Oh, down.
No, in D, number 2.
Oh,
It's
standard.
the
So that's- so
second,
that's
yeah, the
In our
standard.
template. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Okay, no,
so we need to fix our template.
yeah.
That's what I had.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Bob?
Nothing new.
Okay. I have a few things. In the project mitigation description, it says it's to resolve the violation, but I believe there was no violation.
Well,
There was no, a violation was not,
There was no official violation, but it was
no notice of violation was issued or enforcement order, but it still
But it was a
amounts to a violation. It's resolving unpermitted cutting.
well, okay, to resolve unpermitted cutting perhaps, but there,
Okay.
I mean, I don't want people to see that and go looking for the violation, so it just wasn't one. And on finding number 3. After many years of unpermitted pruning, and I would add, and tree removal.
Okay.
And then we've already talked about the mitigation coming in, and I wanted to add a special condition talking about we had something a little different going on with the view corridor, and that was actually at my request. So I can send this language to you, Janet. The permitted view corridor has a terminus before the property line, meaning that no pruning or tree removal is allowed beyond the terminus. So in other words, they added a line connecting the two. It's a triangle now. The V corridor is actually a triangle rather than a V, which is different than we normally do.
Yeah. What would you,
So I can send that, if I can remember, I'll send that to you. The permitted view corridor has a terminus before the property line, meaning that no pruning or tree removal is allowed beyond the terminus. Because often view corridors allow pruning and removal all the way to their property line.
yeah, this property slopes down enough that they didn't need to do anything past a certain line. Yeah, I do recall that.
But if something grows up there, they might think that they can, and this would theoretically ensure that they don't, help ensure. And they agreed to it.
so the view corridor terminates prior,
Before the property line.
yeah, okay, got it.
And they said they would also demarcate the view corridor
Yes.
in the field. You
Yeah.
got that? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Anybody?
Make a motion that we approve the order of conditions for 34 Scattery Road.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
All right, with that, we are on to the notices of intent. 90 Chipping Stone Road, Ron Sema, map 7H, parcel 19C370. I did not see an SC number. I don't know if you've seen one yet, David. We're not issuing an order today anyway, so it's fine. But construction of an addition to a single-family dwelling.
Good afternoon. David Little, representing Ron Seaman. No, I have not seen a number, Nikki. The properties that develop site on Pickerel Pond, the buffer zones shown on our plan are measured from the bordering vegetated wetland, which is adjacent to the pond. The proposed work consists of a second-story addition, which will occur within the footprint of the existing dwelling, and the addition of a new deck. The deck will be constructed over a previously altered area. The only disturbance will be the installation of the sonotube footings to support it. One pitch pine is proposed for removal. All the other pines are proposed to stay. We are proposing to mitigate for the increase in coverage of the new deck by proposing 2 new white pines and 4 clusters of vegetation in open areas between the house and the pond. The vegetation includes bayberry, blueberry, and arrowwood. There is a kind of a large rambling path that goes from the house down toward the pond, and we've indicated to the owners that they should confine that to no more than 4 feet in width, just to so it doesn't disturb as much area. The mitigation constitutes approximately 650 square feet to mitigate for the 588 square foot deck that's being added onto the house. We won't be changing any drainage characteristics on the site with the work. We still have included in our construction notes that gutters and downspouts connected to dry wells or crushed stone at the roof drip line be utilized. The package included a construction protocol, performance standards, alternatives analysis. We have heard from NHESP, which is unusual to hear from them before you hear from DEP, but so be it. And Bill Litchfield will be bringing this to the Zoning Board of Appeals in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So you still need zoning, okay. Karen?
The shower or rinse area that we like to call it, is that being removed?
It is.
Okay, and I didn't notice any stairs that are shown going from this new deck to anywhere. So there's no plans to walk off it?
No, the new deck is proposed to be connected to the upper patio.
Right. I just didn't notice any stairs anywhere listed, so I was just curious.
There are steps shown on the
Right.
plan, but it's within the footprint of the proposed deck.
Okay. I think that's it.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Anyone else? Bob?
I got a couple. Hi, David, how are you?
Good afternoon.
What are those, white pines
Yes.
that are going to be added? There's currently a white pine, existing white pine, large one right there, next to those 2. Is there going to be adequate spacing between all of those?
I think that they may have to be adjusted a little bit closer to the pond,
I'm thinking actually closer to the wall,
closer to the retaining wall.
because there isn't a lot of room.
I did go around and take a picture, and I honestly don't remember what it looks like there, Bob.
Yeah, okay.
But we'll certainly make adjustments so it doesn't impact the one that's presently there.
Okay, yeah, so they have adequate spacing just to
I
to
believe,
thrive,
yeah,
you know?
it certainly appears so.
Yeah. And as you make your way down to the pond on that path, as you come to the BVW, just to the right of the path along the BVW, there's a space, it looks like a cut-through, like a shortcut. And I'm thinking if you took some of these plants, these mitigation plants, and put a few there, there's a.
I know exactly where you mean.
Yes, exactly. That would be great for the BVW, you know?
Okay, so essentially to block the cut-through.
Yes. And just to try to beef that up a little bit.
Unless the cut-through is going to be trampled by those who are making the cut-through.
Well, there's an adequate path just to the left of that area.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it'll be okay.
Okay.
That's all I had for now, you know, aside from the vegetable garden.
We more or less just put stakes in the center of each cluster of bushes, and
Yes.
we can certainly make that adjustment.
Okay, thank you. That's what I had
All right,
mainly.
thank you, Bob. Anyone else? This is another, I have two comments. And the first comment is just a procedural thing for future consideration, for future submissions. In that you do have an alternatives analysis here. But it's basically a defense of the project rather than consideration of what you could have done other than the proposal. So just in terms of what we're looking for in alternatives analysis, an alternatives analysis would have been, we could make it smaller, but we couldn't or wouldn't or whatever, you know. Or we could have moved it somewhere else, but for these reasons, we couldn't or wouldn't. But anyway, that's what we look for in an alternatives analysis. It's not particularly germane for this particular proposal. We also have one of those vegetable gardens here. So this one, though, I think it's just
It's right at the
right
100.
right inside the outer aura. So not as problematic as some we've seen.
But we did show it on the plan.
You
It is
did.
included.
You did, yeah, and absolutely. I don't suppose you know whether that was ever on any approved plan in the past.
I doubt it.
Okay, I doubt it too. So would you recommend the same approach for this one, which is, I guess we could deal with it as part of these order
Yeah, in
conditions.
this case, since they are applying for something
Yeah.
shown on the plan, I would say we can, if you are willing, we can approve it at this point and do, a special condition saying that the garden is,
Yeah.
more or less the garden's permitted at this point.
Almost every garden I looked at during my site visits had a bag of organic fertilizer sitting prominently in the middle of the garden or near the garden.
Somebody was driving in front of you, moving it from one property to the next.
I can't remember if this one was also one of those, but it was remarkable. And so, I don't know if they were tipped off or what. I don't know.
They knew you were coming.
Yeah. But anyway, we will put a condition in there that it's good to be organic.
Absolutely.
In a vegetable garden, right? If you want to eat chemically treated food, just go buy it from the grocery store. Don't grow it, right? Okay, anyway, a little editorial there. Okay, anything else? So do we have changes that we're looking for here, Bob and?
You want to see the adjustment of the plantings? We have the opportunity, Bob.
Sure, I mean,
Well, is it something we need, do you want to be able to see them again before
I
move
can show it. I
move
can revise the plan
I-
and submit another plan.
I think it's a simple enough change that we can revise it and put it onto the work session.
Right, right. That's what I would think, yeah.
And when is the work session, Nikki?
October 5th.
Make a motion that we continue 90 Chipping Stone Road to the work session on October 5th, 2022 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Next, we have the notice of intent for 105 Orleans Road, Jesse Carlton, map 15H, parcel 2L2, SE 103571, raise and replace of existing second-level deck with a new covered porch and deck areas, construction of new retaining walls, pervious patio, and driveway expansion. They had not gotten us new materials or information that we had requested for this meeting in time, so they have requested to continue to October 26th of 2022.
Move that we continue 105 Orleans Road to October 26, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
All right, next is the notice of intent for 50 Sea Change Lane, Ben Morgan, map 3B, parcel 81A-S1, SE 103564, expansion of deck to access pool and the formalization of the view corridor. I assume Thad is on,
I am.
okay.
Hello, for the record, Thad Eldridge, East Southeast. We have now taken out the formalization of the view corridor. We have also specified the location of removing the barberry, mechanical removal of the ivy, and then mechanical removal of the ivy, and then planting some native plant species near the deck. I believe this is about all we need in order to wrap this up. If there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions? I do believe that represents the items that we talked about. It does leave the awkward situation that you alluded to last time in without the approval of the V corridor. But I think that is something that is what it is. I still urge your clients to think about at some point engaging the services of a restoration specialist to see if they can maintain their view in a way that is ecologically approvable, especially by the Conservation Commission.
Understood.
Question, wouldn't it be possible and advisable to put a condition in the order that prohibits tree topping in the resource areas? I mean, and then it's up to them to decide whether to replace them with something lower or come back with a view corridor proposal later. But as a practice, I don't see how the commission can accept it as a practice.
No, we can't accept it, but they're not applying for it, so I don't have an objection. Well, it's a little unusual putting a condition in to say
It's not,
they didn't ask for a view corridor, but how can we put a condition in to not prune your V corridor, basically?
But they previously applied for the view corridor, so we could say something about they removed that from the original plan, and as a result, you know, tree topping is not allowed, is prohibited, or something, because it was in the plan, so we're gonna have to say it was removed.
Just for us to note that it was removed.
I would say it was removed, and I would also do a finding that tree topping may have occurred in the past but is no longer allowed.
A finding.
Yes, yeah, a
yeah.
finding.
But as far as the condition is concerned, I think that's what you're proposing, right?
No, I think it was in the findings that this was in the plan and it had been removed.
Okay.
So that's a finding.
You're not proposing
And
a condition, though, or you are?
I am.
You actually are. I guess that's the question for us.
well, if it's in the findings, can't we add something into the special conditions that addresses that as well? Because it was removed, there is this condition.
Right, it's not necessarily a question of what's in the application, but it's also a question of the conditions that the commission learns have been occurring on the site.
It is not contested that it has been occurring.
Right, and it's also true that, it's in our mitigation, or in our, whatever, our mitigation policy or our vegetation policy that tree topping is never permitted. It's about to be a regulation, but it's not at that point yet, but still.
Hopefully.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah, and it can't hurt
I
to
just-
state that.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that, too. I think it's important if it's an issue potentially to
Okay.
state it.
So,
Can you just state for the, to avoid any misunderstanding or
For the avoidance of doubt,
apparent
as they
doubt.
say.
avoidance of doubt?
yeah, well, it sounds like everyone here wants to add in the finding and the condition. So be it. Anything else?
I got one small thing, Thad. On the plan, it says English ivy to be mechanically removed and also remove barberry shrubs. What about the privet?
We can remove the privet there as well.
Can you add
Just
that to the?
Once we start going, it's a never-ending adventure in there.
Yeah, they do stand out by the deck, though. I understand it's right localized to that area, but if that privet was removed as well, that would be good.
Okay.
Because privet spreads by seeds from fruit, from birds, so it would spread from the smallest plant. Okay. Can we just add that as a condition, or do we need to ask for that to be?
We can add that to the plan.
Okay, all right.
Just 2 copies. I don't see any need for more.
Right. Okay. Anybody else? All right.
Work session, is that going?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Make a motion that we continue 50 Sea Change Lane to the work session on October 5th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Lise,
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Thank you much.
Thank you, Thad.
All right, the next notice of intent is 150 Goose Pond Road, James and Carolyn Eldridge, map 6G, parcel 14B, construction of a single-family dwelling. And this is under, I didn't catch this until I went to look for the SE number, it's a local only, so is that
Yes.
wetland size or?
It is the inland bank, local definition of an inland bank. David Clark Engineering on behalf of the Eldridges who are in attendance. For those of you who are newer on the commission, regarding the delineation of the resource area, under the Wetlands Protection Act, an inland bank is the normal flood elevation annual flood elevation of the bank or the top of the bank that confines the water body, whichever is lower. So the top of the bank can never be higher than the mean annual flood elevation. Under the local regulation, they changed the word whichever is lower to whichever is higher, the first observable break. So we show both banks on the plan, the lower one being the limits of the Wetlands Protection Act bank, and the upper one, which is the first observable break above the pond. We were here in 2016 for pretty much the same project. We made it clear at that time that we would be building the barn first, and the plan was, as finances allowed, we would get started on the house within 5 years, knowing that we could extend the order of conditions. Unfortunately, the orders of conditions weren't extended. They've expired. Even with the COVID extension, this order had expired 4 months before the state's tolling of the time period. So we're before you with a new application. The other order is still open because there's a significant amount of work on that order that hasn't been done, namely a lot of the mitigation plantings that were required. If you've been out there, you'll see that there's an extensive amount of wood chips that were put down to stabilize the area before we got to doing the mitigation. So what's different between this and the previous project, because we have to file, the elders took another look at the design of the house and made some changes. Also, as part of this application, we've also included a restoration mitigation plan by Joyce Williams, which there was no formal landscape plan under the previous application. Again, the resource areas are the local bank to Goose Pond. We're maintaining the 50-foot no disturb zone from the pond, and majority of the work is in the 50 to 100, and obviously a lot of the work is outside the 100. One of the requests by the commission back in 2016 was because there was possibly a 5-year gap between when the barn was built and when the main dwelling was built, that the applicant hold off in tree removal within the footprint of the main house in that time. They did that. Unfortunately, we had that tornado go through, and this is the section of town that got hit the hardest. Basically a corridor from Depot Road in South Harwich through this area, through the Ryder Pond area. There was significant tree damage in this area. So the tree loss that you see out there, if you've been out to the site, is primarily due to that storm.
Oh, thank you for explaining that, because it was alarming to see all those trees cut at chest high. Okay. Oh, that's it?
Yeah, I would say yes. I did see the comment from the zoning officer, and we'll provide documentation to the zoning officer that the barn will not be a second residence. Primarily, is there a kitchen in it or not, or stove particularly, and there isn't one now. So when we apply for the building permit, we'll make that presentation to them.
Okay. I just heard you say there was no planting plan on the previously approved.
There was a planting area shown on the Clark Engineering plan, but I don't believe there was a formal landscape plan provided by a landscape designer or restoration specialist.
Were you on the commission then?
Nope.
Okay, it predates all of us then. Every single one of us has no knowledge of that project, so that's unusual, of course, for a project of this scope.
Well, it was during the certainly the regulations haven't changed in that period of time, so it's just the evolution of the commission asking for more detail on restoration. I think there were projects more substantial projects that were requiring restoration plans, but I think that was more tied to work in the no disturb zone as mitigation than restoration in the 50 to 100 and
Okay.
mitigation for that.
All right. Well, I have a few then, just, so on this landscape plan, you mentioned the wood chips around we're calling it the barn, I guess. And this planting plan still shows a lot of wood chip area. Is that,
Well, that will be removed. It's just shown there now, I believe, because it is there now, and it's acting as stabilization until we get in there to plant. Let me just get Joyce's plan. I don't know if Joyce is on the line. I don't see her.
because I would expect the plan to show mitigation plants there, whether or not there's chips there or not.
There's also a garden noted.
It also
In the
refers to a
chips.
plant list that
Yeah,
was
there's-
not, at least not in the
We
electronic.
didn't receive a plant
Oh,
list.
everybody else got one?
Oh, the printed people got one?
Oh, they got one.
Oh, man. The
It's a
the three
lot.
digital people here did not get it,
That
so,
explains my,
The checks mean.
okay.
That's my fault in that it came in the same morning that we filed, and the application had already been scanned to send to you.
I see,
So
all right.
I apologize for that.
Well, while Janet's looking at it, she's representing the digital people. All right, so this is a big project.
yeah.
When I was there, there was a sign on a tree down the slope, CCF land.
Yes.
Is that, what is that, does that correspond to a line that you already have on your chart? Or,
It's the property line to the north.
oh, it is the property line?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
so that was all part of the Atwood property that wrapped all the way.
I see.
It's from
Almost to the Goose Pond Landing on the other side. So Doug and Minnie Atwood gave a bunch of land to the foundation from, starting here to the east to Murphy's Bog, and then one lot over, I believe, was all that initial gift to the foundation. And I believe the town and the foundation just purchased
Yeah,
2 more lots on the other side of the pond.
so you're not touching CCF land?
No.
Clearly, okay.
No, there is, just to be clear, there is activity on the CCF land. There's a footpath that the neighborhood or a lot of people in town use through the Eldridge land. You see it on the east side of our lot, and
Yeah.
it goes down to the pond. And that's, the Eldridges have been maintaining that as open access for the neighborhood, and I believe that CCF has kind of allowed that to continue, because it was kind of access for the whole neighborhood prior to the CCF getting the property.
Yeah, I saw some erosion control tubes established there to try to, on that path. All right. Yeah, great, if you want to, are you?
Yeah, I just want to ask
Go ahead,
Nikki
'cause
a
I
question.
wanna
Well,
get my thoughts
do we
together.
have, so, let me clarify, the mitigation under the 2016 permit has not yet been completed?
No,
Okay, so we have that plan, okay. And it's not a problem to issue a new order? Is it a,
well, the problem
How
is
do
the
we-
other order is expired, so legally we can't do any work under that order.
and that one authorized the barn and
And the
contains the
house.
mitigation that hasn't been completed,
Okay.
but it's expired, but no COC's been issued.
Right.
and can't be because the mitigation isn't completed.
Right.
This is
Yeah.
confusing.
A little messy.
Yeah.
Is any of the mitigation reflected here, the mitigation
wrap the
from
mitigation into this permit?
2016?
And resurrect it that way? It's all,
Yes, we can definitely say that any mitigation from past projects is to be completed and remain, I don't see any problem with that.
Can we get where it was supposed to be and what was supposed to go in?
I mean, it's
Well, I
listed on
guess
the,
there
on
wasn't
the, on
a
the,
list. Trying to,
the mitigation and restoration plan shows mitigation areas surrounding the barn. So
Right,
that's already there.
but is that part of the mitigation for this project or for the previous? Because
For the previous.
shouldn't they be separated? The mitigation for this project should be its own entity?
well, it's tricky because this was already part of the project. This was not, it wasn't just do the garage, it was
Right.
the house and the
Right.
garage were approved. So mitigation for the old project.
Oh.
So we can issue, well, it's all one permit, so we can't issue a COC. Can we do a COC that says work was partially done and partially not, and then close that out and wrap the mitigation that hasn't been done yet into the new order? Would that work?
I think we've done something like that
I think,
before.
yeah.
Just trying.
Anyway, while she's thinking about that, David, I have a question. I don't know that Joyce is here, but she makes a distinction on the plan between mitigation areas and restoration areas, and they're colored differently. And I guess my question is, how are we to treat those differently? Is the area being restored as mitigation?
I would say no, because it looks like all of that is in the no disturb zone. So I think it's just a restoration of the understory.
Okay,
So it, and
that's
Yeah.
fine, because there's enough
That-
mitigation without calling that mitigation, I think. Although I haven't
I
added it all
would
up
not
yet.
call that mitigation.
So that's the area that, does that include the area of what's referred to as the grub clearing area? Because they're pointing to two different, on the mitigation and restoration plan, the area of grub clearing points to, on one side, sort of the eastern edge, western edge of the property in the mitigation area, and on the other arrow goes through what's referred to as the restoration area.
I don't know.
Okay. And somewhere, I can't find it in the materials, but in my notes, I wrote down that the cleared area amounts to 5,500 square feet. And you said that the tornado damage is partly to blame, or partly responsible for the clearing in there.
For the tree loss, yeah.
But was
yeah.
there clearing done as well after, so that,
I believe that some of the understory was removed prior to any permitting done out here, because looking at the property, you wouldn't know that you were in a conservation resource area because you're so far away from the actual pond.
so it's a combination of natural event and some vegetation removal?
But certainly no trees were removed with the understanding that we had when we were here 7 years ago.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just trying to find the plan from 2016.
Is the septic system that was installed under the permit, is that sized for both structures so that it doesn't, it's already okay for
Yes, yeah.
for the new house?
We had split the system in two, but the installer thought they actually saved money if they just did it all at once. And so that's in and doesn't have to be disturbed, other than a new pipe going to the new house,
Right.
to the septic tank.
Okay.
Joyce is not here on virtually, is that what I'm,
Pardon me?
is, Joyce Williams is not?
I don't see her on the line,
Okay.
so so no, she's not here.
I think we have a number of questions for her.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have a couple while everyone's got their heads down. First of all, it's a big lot, and I'm just really disoriented by the fact, and this is just a joke, there's no pool.
Jamie's a fisherman. I think he's seen enough water in a 12-hour day, work day.
Okay. This just really stunned me, but anyway, just thought I'd mention it. Because we hardly ever see anything on a big property that doesn't have a pool. Kudos.
Don't apply for one later.
We have an inland bank here, which I think we have not seen before, except last time you presented one to us a number of years
I've done
ago.
one recently, but I
About
can't
3 or
remember
4
where it is
years
at the
ago.
moment.
Black Pond, yeah.
Black Pond, yeah.
Yeah.
And, but in your performance, should your performance standards have addressed the inland bank section of the town's regs? It addressed section 4, but not section
Well,
3.
We're not doing work on the bank, so it basically, this is just a project within the
All
OR.
outside, all outside,
Yeah,
okay. Okay,
but looking at that, you look at the topography of the land, it's sloping to the east, not towards the pond. So I really don't think that this project would have any impact on the local definition of a bank.
no, it wouldn't say, no.
So it's again, like I said, it's entirely a buffer zone project.
I will opine that with regard to the restoration area, I didn't observe, I've observed very few invasives in the area, so it's, I mean, I imagine, I don't know what the restoration, haven't seen some of the details, I don't know what the restoration consists of, but it probably, I would guess it doesn't need a lot. So, I think, in general, we do want to, we would enjoy a conversation with the.
Joyce.
With Joyce, yeah, I think that's where most of my questions lie. You know, for example, the wood chip area, why is that not green? What is happening around, is that a foundation plant area that is not green, but between the green mitigation area and the house itself?
It's gravel. It
There's a
says-
gravel area.
It's
And I
gravel.
was curious why it's gravel
Oh, okay.
going around and then becomes wood chips, so that was one of my questions.
Yeah, the area to the west of on the west side of the barn is used as storage, so
No, I was talking about for the main house,
Yeah.
Oh, oops, sorry.
there
the
shouldn't be
area of
any.
grub clearing. On one side of the house, on the front, it says lawn, the other side, it says area of grub, oh, it does say lawn. never mind.
Lawn.
So then we would want to ask questions about the nature of the lawn and so forth, so. We ask questions about irrigation, and we have a lot of the normal questions that we would ask her about.
I have a quick question, David. In the chart in the beginning of the narrative, you indicate the BVW being one of the resource areas. Is it?
It's down below the top of the state-defined bank, so it doesn't, the 100 feet from it doesn't even come onto the property. But it's a nearby resource area.
Okay, so it's nearby but not on
On-
the site and
yeah.
not impacted,
Yeah.
okay.
Anybody else?
For Joyce, I think this is for her for next time, the number of trees that are proposed to be removed. I didn't see any flagged, I couldn't tell.
I saw one tree with a blue ribbon on it, but that was down the bank, and, yeah. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah, and foundation plantings, like Bob mentioned. And if there's going to be any lawn irrigation, I see a note on the lawn itself, the seeding of drought-tolerant fescue, but I don't see anything about irrigation.
So, putting all the mitigation part aside, does anyone have concerns about the hardscape dwelling proposal? Okay. So I guess that's really where we're at.
Okay.
We need to
All right.
have the conversation with Joyce.
We can be back in 2 weeks?
28th?
Sounds good.
Make a motion that we continue 150 Goose Pond Road to October 28th, 2022.
September 20, yeah.
Oh, September 28th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you then.
The next order of condition, or notice of intent, is for 128 Wood Carver Knoll Nominee Trust, map 11D, parcel F9 and F9B. Proposed coastal bank stabilization, construction of building additions, and reconstruction of patios.
David Clark Engineering on behalf of the applicants. Jen is here from Crawford Land Management, talk about the work on the bank. This started off as a coastal bank restoration project, I think 3 years ago now, and then the owners contacted Crawford to take another look at that, and at the same time they contacted Minglewood Homes about doing some renovations. So both projects kind of came together at the same time. That's why you see a complete application for both things. So I'll talk about the work on the house, and Jen is here, and I think Angela's here too, she was, to talk about what's proposed for the stabilization of that footpath. I believe the work on the house is minimal as possible. There's a small addition on the north side of the house, which really is the only resource area would be the floodplain to the east. And the topography there is just barely a coastal bank. It's just barely steeper than 4-to-1. On the south side of the house, we've really tried to keep all the alterations within the footprint of what's there now. Andrew Garrelay was the landscape designer for that portion of it, and you'll see that a lot of that work is within redoing the patios that are there. There is one small addition on the east side of the house, but that again is over the existing patio. There's a primary bank which Jen will be dealing with in her part of the presentation, and then the secondary bank is on the west side of the house up closer to the patio where the landform intercepts the floodplain. But that area has already been used for decades as part of the residential use. The patio there and landscaping material on that bank. And I do have the numbers on my plan as far as the changes, and basically we're moving things around and not changing things substantially. Pardon me a second here. So within the 50 to 100, there's a 14 square foot increase, and in the 0 to 50, there's a 201 square feet. And although that may seem like a lot, that's primarily the addition that's on the north side of the house out in the lawn area where the front entry is. So it really has no impact on the Oyster River, the salt marsh, and the associated BVW to the west. This does have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I don't know when that's scheduled. I think it was in the zoning officer's comment letter to the commission. But I'd be happy to answer questions on the house portion of the project.
Well, does anyone have any? Okay, Janet does.
Just a one for clarification, the patio on the west side is indicated to be, I think the word is reconfigured. So what does that really mean?
We're going to rip it up and replace it in a different geometry, basically.
How does that change the footprint?
Just bear with me a second.
Or actually, I don't care so much how it changes the footprint. My question is really about how it changes the coverage, right?
Sure. So the existing patio and stairs and the walls are total of 1,104 square feet. The proposed patio, stairs, and walls is 1,011, so 7 more square
okay.
feet. So, like I said, that 201 square feet in the no disturb zone is that porch addition on the north side of the house, primarily.
And the material remain the same?
Yes.
Dry laid stone?
I think Andrew spells it out on his plan.
He did say.
He did
dry-
say, yeah.
He said dry laid something.
I'm here if you
Oh,
want.
he is. Thank you.
Hello, Andrew.
Speak for himself.
Hi. Yes, the reconfiguration is actually smaller than what was there. I was trying to get it so that all of the work was less than or equal to, including the addition out front. But I wasn't able to, we were just gonna run out of functionality if I made it match up. So all of the expansion is on the street side addition. There's actually a reduction, I don't have the number in front of me unfortunately, on the water side of the house. The patio is actually smaller. You'll notice on the left end, there's an area removing some part of the patio. On the plan, it's really hard to see, but there is a gray line of what was existing, and that's brick, and it's being changed to another dry laid stone. So we're actually shrinking it on the water side of the house.
Okay. Okay, I see that lighter gray line now, so I see,
Yeah, it's hard to see. Well,
Okay.
actually, on David's plan, you can see it better. It's thicker. So I made a little bit more area around where I'm putting the fire pit. I shrunk some right at the top of the coastal bank at the left end of the house, the west end of the house, well, the south end of the west wing of the house, I guess we'd say. So I shrunk it there, but I added a little bit of fat around the patio so that chairs won't fall off the edge of the patio there. And there's some reduction also on the east end where the pergola is.
okay, got it, thank you.
Yeah.
On the west side, that patio that's going to be reconfigured, and you say proposed walls, I don't see, and maybe I'm missing it, that the walls are represented on the plan.
There's no wall on the west side.
Oh,
It's all on the east, in front of the east wing of the house.
right.
Currently, it's pressure treated wood and it's being changed to modular block.
Right, on the plan, it says existing patio and stairs to be reconfigured, proposed walls. So maybe you want to remove that wording if there is no wall proposed.
Yeah, that's on my plan, so
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah, I
that's
don't
an
know
error.
what that.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep, that's an error.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anything else about hardscape? Okay, so maybe we could move on to Jen's presentation and/or Andrew's.
Yeah.
I'm here. So for the record, Jen Crawford here representing the applicant. So as David said, we were more heavily involved in the other coastal bank, so to speak. One thing unique about this property is that there is an easement, an association easement for access that goes all across basically the top of the bank, closest to the water on this property. So if you were at the site, there is an existing footpath there. It's flanked by basically a tall hedge that separates the footpath from the home and the lawn area. The native vegetation, or excuse me, the vegetation rather, that is on site is almost all invasive vegetation, and that hedge is comprised almost of all invasive vegetation. One of the things that we were tasked to do was to provide a stabilization solution for this coastal bank, especially with that association path located right along the top of it. So we went through the process of designing a fiber roll array to stabilize that coastal bank. The detailed section that's shown on our plan is the area where the bank is the tallest, so to speak. So from our plan view, moving from the western portion to the eastern portion of the site, it goes from being too high up to that taller part of the bank, and then back down to the eastern side at 3 high. We also took the liberty of basically providing a 24-inch buffer along the top of the bank before the association path starts, and then maintaining a 4-foot wide access path, and then reestablishing a native hedge rather than the kind of conglomeration of invasive shrubs that are growing there to really separate the house from the path and to provide some privacy for the homeowners, as well as to make sure that the association path stays within the easement to the best of our abilities. That's really the general premise of our work on this project. We also included, there was a small mitigation requirement for some of the renovation work being done to the house and the patio areas. So we provided mitigation for those pieces in the form of lawn reduction and really adding those native planting areas onto that native hedge that would be reinstalled to make a wider, more contiguous vegetative buffer along the coastal bank. We gave you guys all sorts of plant specifications and seeding specifications and cross sections. So I am more than happy to try and answer any questions you have about it.
All right, thank you, Jen. Anyone have questions about the planting part?
I got a couple, Bob. Thanks. Jen, where it says easement revegetation, I thought that was a path.
Hold on, I'm trying to find the note that you're referring to. You're referring to the note on the plan?
Yes.
Easement revegetation.
On the
Oh,
far
yep.
right, it says easement revegetation. I thought that was an access path.
So the access path is the area that's hatched with the sideways hatch, so to speak.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, so the area that you're looking at that is referring to easement revegetation, that whole area is currently invasive species, so we kind of figured we had gone that far, and there was really no reason not to manage and to revegetate that area with natives if we've done this entire front part of shoreline. So we're just calling it out as a separate area from the hedge, I guess.
Right almost to the property line, so you're gonna have like a mow
Correct.
path. I see the dash line too. Is that gonna be like
Correct.
a mowing path in between?
So the easement pathway, excuse me, would be comprised of a no-mow fescue. So there wouldn't need to be a mow path per se, an additional one, because we would be able to use, you're referring to being able to maintain it?
To the right of the easement revegetation, right to the property line.
That's our limit of work line.
Okay.
The dash line is the limit.
Are there invasives on that property line, on the other person's property?
Yes, there are. So that's where the maintenance of the project and of the naturalized areas becomes extremely important.
Okay, and where the boathouse is, where the concrete slab is,
Yep.
there are invasives right on the edge of that concrete slab. Do you know where I'm talking about?
So well, yes, there are basically invasive vegetation surrounding the boathouse in general. Anywhere that's included within our limit of work for the fiber roll installation, those invasives would be managed and then revegetated accordingly. Anything on the western or northern side of the boathouse is not currently within the scope of the project.
Okay. And the drain line, the drain pipe, the PVC pipe that comes out of that concrete slab, it looks like it runs adjacent to the boathouse along the lawn. Do you know where I'm talking about?
I do recall something in there, but I didn't really investigate. Anything with it. I'm not sure if David knows any more about that particular piece, but I believe it's likely poured into that concrete slab.
I don't know
Okay.
anything about that, sorry.
Yeah, if you could investigate that, we just
Sure.
wanted to know about that, where it's draining from.
Sure.
So that boathouse, isn't it beyond the property line?
It is.
Okay, so, but it's still part of this?
Technically, no. The boathouse is owned by the four houses at the end of this, so it's a separate piece of land, separate ownership.
All right.
Don't they need to join in the application?
I'm looking at that now and seeing if we added that to the NOI. I don't believe we did. So,
I didn't notice it.
so I will discuss that with Jen after the meeting, whether we include
How
that,
we deal with
add that to the application, and notify, it should be the same abutter, so it, yeah, it will definitely be the same abutters, but it's not, I don't see it listed on there. Well, maybe, I think we did.
So the owner of 128 is not one of the owners of the boathouse?
Yes. There's a quarter interest, there's four houses at the end of this, at the cul-de-sac, and they each have a quarter interest in the boathouse lot.
Including the applicant?
Yes,
Okay, okay.
yeah. And I'm just looking for the assessor's map.
Then we have a couple of vegetable gardens, too.
We do.
Of course. I was going to bring that up
And one of
next.
them did indeed have the bag of organic fertilizer prominently displayed.
We did include the boathouse lot, so it is part of this application. In our, on page 1 of the NOI form, section A1, we include parcels F9 and F9B. F9B is the boathouse lot. So
Is it possible just to get maybe some written confirmation that the other interests of the boathouse lot are fine with this? Just to,
well, we're restoring the path for them, so I would imagine
and,
they should
and
be
they,
fine.
I mean, they did get the letters and I haven't
Yeah.
heard from anybody reaching out,
Yeah,
but,
I will,
Well, you're also, adding fiber rolls
In their property.
in front of the boathouse. So,
correct.
it's more of a, we have confirmation I'm not going to get in trouble later type of thing, if possible. But yes, they were notified and it is in the application, so.
And I
Well, they
just
were
have-
sent notification of the application as part of the requirement of the NOI. But I'll
Or they may or may not realize that this is affecting property that they actually own.
They all have a quarter, yeah,
Yeah.
1/4 interest in the boathouse, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know 2 of the neighbors have been in rounds of discussions with the applicant, because at one time, we were looking at moving the path to the north side of the property, and we couldn't get everybody on board on that, which would have required a path through the BVW to get to the boathouse and a set of stairs over that bank, and I think it was too big a project, too big a change for the neighborhood.
Right.
I just have one more question for Andrew. In your plant schedule, where it's at the very bottom, it says transplanted existing perennials and supplements to be determined. Could you insert native after and native supplements?
I could do that, yes.
Okay. That's all I had for now, thanks.
Do we know if the gardens were permitted?
Well, I think we typically assume no.
They were not
Yeah.
shown on previous plans.
Yeah, okay, so we would be permitting them here if we approve this project. But we'll have the normal, but again, it's not an issue because I saw the bag of organic fertilizer, so.
I have to make sure I leave one out for people to see.
Absolutely, you should do that.
I don't fertilize.
So I have are you done, Bob? Yeah, okay. I do have a question for Jen, and that is, it's a complicated little planting plan with a lot of different hatchings and so forth, but I'm gathering that when you're done, between the house and the water, there will be no invasives.
That would be if we've done our job correctly, that is the intent, and that would be the outcome.
That would be the intent?
Yes.
Yes, okay,
Yes.
okay. But the only issue is the west side, and, you know, we know that there are invasives there, and so you're moving the path closer to the property line. Where the,
You
no,
mean
you're
on
moving
the,
it.
I'm sorry, on the east side?
Oh, you know, I'm not very good with east and west. The
The right side of the plan as you
the
look at
right
it?
side of the plan, yeah, let's call it that, yeah.
Honestly, the path is basically in that location. For the most part, the only difference is that it comes around if you're looking at the plan, it comes around the left side of that little existing garden. And so we are relocating it so that it is actually within the easement and providing native vegetation between it and the little garden. So the pathway for the association members gets slightly longer as they have to continue down parallel with the property line before making that turn at the coastal bank. So they get a few extra steps in there is the only difference from the existing path.
Well, okay, so what occurred to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, that if the easement path were on the property line and it were fescue, and if it were then you would mow it, you know, it would be mowed by someone, then that would act as a de facto barrier, a mow strip.
Yep, I understand. Yeah, I understand exactly what you're getting at. Just kind of flip-flopping the planting area with the path area and moving the path
Right.
closer to the
For-
property line.
for-
I understand.
for that-
Yeah,
for that
I don't
reason.
think that's
Yeah,
correct. Yeah, that shouldn't really be an issue because we've only shown the path, so to speak, stopping on our plan where it stops because that's where it meets up with existing lawn that's already there, that's already being used. So I don't think making that modification doesn't matter in terms of whether or not it's in the easement, because it remains in the easement and it doesn't make any difference in terms of our revegetation strategy. So I don't see that as being any sort of issue.
and it would also.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it would push the path away from that garden as well, so.
Yep.
And
No,
so
it's very,
do-
that's very
yeah,
smart.
They do
actually.
double duty as a mow strip and as a
Mm-hmm.
path.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's a very good change.
Okay. Anything else for Jen or Andrew? Janet?
So Jen, I have a couple of questions about the fiber roll installation part of this.
Yep, yes.
Do you know, who's going to be performing that work, the actual installation job?
It's our intent that we would be.
Okay. And I didn't see, and maybe I just missed it, your plan for access, is it all from above the bank? And,
Yes, yep, absolutely. There's a very healthy salt marsh growing right below, which is why we've kept our limit of work so tight. And we included in our detail the installation of a silt fence right at the bottom there,
Yep.
just to ensure that there's a separation between that, and with this bank being, very small, actually, all the work can be done from up above, and it's not an issue.
so how will so the rolls will be placed into place by some sort of winch machinery at the top that will lower them down and?
It will require the aid of a small track mini excavator from the
Okay.
top of the bank. Yeah, and the bank is only, at its highest point, is only around 6 feet tall.
Yeah, it's not
So-
very high. So, and the rolls
Correct.
go from 1 to 5 rolls high in various places as needed?
Yes,
Yep.
that's correct.
20-inch diameter,
Yep.
okay, and then you've got the protocol for covering the sand and planting, all that?
Yep.
We'll put that all in the order. Okay, and we'll put in some usual conditions about making sure that that salt marsh is protected, and if anything happens, that it's restored
Yep.
afterwards.
Of course.
Okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or concerns? So we're looking potentially at some changes to the planting plan, I think, maybe?
I think all three plans had a little bit to be modified.
Oh, yeah,
I
all of
got a
them do,
note
yeah.
that's got to come off.
But relatively minor. I
And
think.
we need the sign off from the other owners of the boathouse and that part of the
Yeah,
process.
Yeah.
We don't technically need it, but
But-
it'd be nice to have.
Right, well, we asked for it.
So I don't know how antsy they are. 9:28 starting to fill up a little bit. So I don't know if they could wait till 10.
Do you have Sarah's comment letter with you?
I
on you?
do.
Yeah, when do they go to ZBA?
I think she stated the ZBA date on that one, or it could have been no application's been received yet. If that's the case, then
I know she's scheduling out into.
to November now,
November.
yeah. And November, December are tough months for ZBA.
You have those 2 vegetable gardens, too.
Yeah, well, we,
Are we happy, are we going to just condition them? and-
yeah, are we okay with, one of them appears to be a vegetable garden, looks like more of a cutting garden.
Yes.
One could be moved.
What-
The small, I think the vegetable could be,
That's
if
the
you look
bigger.
at the plan, could be moved back. I don't know how
I
much.
did take a look at some aerial photography just to see how far back I could see that garden on there, and it appeared to me as though that garden has kind of appeared in photographs around the early 2000s, around 2001 or so. So it has been there for quite some time based on what I could find. That probably doesn't help anything, and it doesn't mean it's in any form or permit, but it has been there for a while.
The one on the right has space. It could move back. The one on the left is pretty much right up against everything else. There's very little area between it and the other plantings for the house.
Does anybody,
Well, David, since there are two banks here. How would you characterize the location of those gardens? They're in between the lower and the secondary.
They're in the floodplain.
So they're just, you just use
yeah.
it that way?
Yeah,
Okay.
and if they appeared in the early 2000s, the floodplain would have been 5 feet lower than elevation 8 under the previous datum. So a majority of the garden would have been out of the floodplain.
Oh, yeah, look at that. 8 just skirts to the bottom. Yep. Yeah.
Okay, how do people feel about the gardens? Should they move?
That's hard.
It is always difficult. It's been there forever. It's small. I'm referring to the cutting garden, and I don't have a particular issue with it. Because, in part because what we're establishing here is, I mean, there's some buffers between the garden and the marsh. So if they indeed complied with if they indeed gardened organically, I'm personally not too concerned about its present location, especially given its size.
I would agree, given how long it's been there and its location, and we can add the appropriate conditions to protect the marsh area.
Findings and special conditions, yeah.
I agree with that, too.
Okay.
Okay, we'll write it up.
And as far as zoning goes, it will not be heard before November 17th. It was a no application has been received to date, so
Yes.
it'll be at least November 17th till it's heard.
So there's no rush to get back before you. So how about second meeting in October?
Sure, let me just pull up that.
That'll give us plenty of time to get
That
the
would be
abutters.
October 12th.
Oh,
Okay. I'll move that we continue 128 Woodcarver Knoll to October 12th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye. All right, well, thank you. See you then. Do we want to
Thank
take
you.
a little break? We
Yeah.
don't have that much more to go, but we've been almost 2 hours.
David's been standing there. And he's gonna keep
So,
standing there.
could we just go till 3 o'clock?
Yep.
Yep.
right, now we have the notice of intent for 20 Jericho Lane. 20 Jericho Lane LLC, map 10B, parcel B2, SE 103541, removal of existing pier and relocation and reconstruction of a new pier, which has been modified to more or less be just reconstruction, not relocation.
Good afternoon. David Clark, Clark Engineering on behalf of the applicants. Teresa Sprague is also on the line. After 8 months of going back and forth with zoning, we could not find an avenue without a variance procedure to move the dock to a more appropriate location. Rather than wasting a good permit effort, the applicant has chosen to rebuild the pier in the same location. It's quite substantial permanent pier right now, 10 by 10 posts, but the bad part about the pier is that there are 2 sections of floats that act as a ramp that bottom out at half tide or lower. On some big tides, both floats are on the bottom. So as part of the rebuild, we will get rid of the 2 sections of float that act as a ramp and replace that with a seasonal fixed pier. The fixed pier will be narrower than the one that's there now for further improvement on coverage on the salt marsh. The whole thing will also be shifted to the south a couple of feet because right now it is over the last time the previous owner rebuilt it, didn't quite get it right, and the first 20 feet or so was over the property line. Because we're giving up some of the floats, the actual float at the end of the pier that boats would tie up will be a little bit bigger. Overall, the footprint still fits within the Corps Engineers programmatic permit, which is 600 square feet below the mean high water mark. The existing pier is right at 600 square feet, and the new pier is at 600 square feet. Because we are staying in the same location, we will be rebuilding the ramp that's on the coastal bank down to the float. That'll be just replaced in kind, basically similar to what's there now. And also we'll be reestablish the path up to the dwelling. And Teresa's plan, and Teresa's here to talk about the mitigation that's proposed as well as the hardscape features associated with that. One of the goals that the applicant had was he owns 87, it's not Jericho Lane, it's, the name escapes me at the moment. And having the pier down at the southerly property line, you can keep a better eye on it. And also 87 being a walkout basement, it provides very easy access for boating equipment. Because it's so far away from both houses, we're also added to the plan a 8 by 12 shed that's just above the coastal bank, immediately adjacent to the path. Pick that location because it is immediately adjacent to the path and no trees have to come out. So it's just a little bit of clearing underbrush and putting in the diamond pier footings and building on top of that. Finally, it's been a while since anybody's done any view pruning here. If you've been to the site, pretty much every single oak tree on that bank has been topped at one time or several times. The previous owner bought the property, I think in 1959. The dock first went in 1960. And it's been the same owner since then, up until 2 years ago. So there's been decades of topping, and some of those oak trees at breast height they're quite substantial, but you go a few more feet up and it's all flush growth. So one of the issues is that flush growth is obscuring the view of the pier from the house. And so for safety reasons, we'd like to manage the view and also, I think, take one tree out. And again, Teresa's here to talk about that portion of the project. Even though the pier is staying in the same location, because we're modifying the footprint slightly, it has to go to Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit. And I think that's scheduled for late October. As far as DEP in Chapter 91, I think we're 1 year into a 15-year renewal of the license, so what this will require is probably just a modification of that license, not a whole new license, because it is within the same footprint and at that 600 square feet or under. That's it on the pier. Be happy to answer questions.
I just want to state that zoning Sarah did give me the impression that zoning would be okay with this proposed design, and Renee with Shellfish did not have a problem with the in section that says float being extended. So she was fine with those. Just wanted to add that in before, or in case it came up.
So it sounds like we can move on to Sounds like we can, wow, I was off all this time. Sounds like we can move on to the, to Teresa's part of the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flex Design here on behalf of the applicant. Our mitigation plan is actually pretty straightforward and quite simple. We're proposing just over 1,000 square feet of additional native planting in areas that directly abut the previously approved mitigation area to the south and west that was approved for the amendment for the pool. And also the existing abutting native vegetation that's located to the east and south and east. So our mitigation planting plan extends just to the north of the previously approved mitigation planting area. You'll see there's a single rail fence to delineate vegetated buffer line. That fence delineates the previously approved mitigation that runs from there south to the top of Coastal Bank. We're proposing to bring that edge of fencing all the way up. We're realigning the in-ground risers that currently allow access to that ramp and to the dock so that they better align with the existing stairs, the approved stairs as part of the pool construction. And then just to the north of that realigned set of in-ground timber risers, we're proposing additional mitigation planting in that area. So we're completely infilling that entire area with native vegetation that will abut the existing vegetated areas that are currently showing as not shaded on the plan that run to the north and south of the proposed access timbers. On our plan, you can see the proposed 8x12 shed. And as David pointed out, that's tucked in between. No tree removal is required for that. It's just some clearing of understory brush. As David pointed out too, we are proposing to remove flush cut 2 existing oak trees. There's actually 2 trees that are currently within that view shed. So the property owners are concerned when they're on their deck, they are not able to see the pier at all. So they do have some safety concerns. As David pointed out, the trees throughout this entire property have been pretty heavily pruned. Historically, they've been topped. The interior canopies are somewhat thin, but overall they're not in, they are definitely in decline, but they're not in such bad shape that any of the other trees, I would recommend removing any of the other trees at this time. However, these trees, like the others, have been topped. There is a significant amount of top growth. They are blocking that view to the pier. And so the property owner specifically asked us to propose to flush cut those in order to allow them to have views for safety purposes to the pier. To mitigate for that, we are proposing 2 additional trees to be planted up on to the north or northeast of the pool. as well as some additional shrub planting to be included in that area. So in total, we're proposing 2 eastern red cedars, 46 shrubs, and 13 native grasses to enhance the vegetated buffer that was approved previously. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the planting plan.
All right, thank you, Teresa. So the flush cutting that we were talking about, is, what does that involve other than what area has been traditionally flush cut, and are we doing anything about, are you putting mitigation in those areas, or are those areas that are flush cut somewhere else?
No, we are actually proposing shrubs in those areas. So those 2 trees, they're shown with the red X on the plan that we're proposing to flush cut. And basically that entails cutting them to the ground. And then we are proposing to plant shrubs in the area where those oak trees are proposed to be flush cut.
Okay, for somehow I was getting the impression there were other areas that had been topped.
Trees have been topped throughout, so there's pitch pines and oaks, and it looks like historically the trees have been topped. They've been very heavily pruned for view purposes by the previous property owners. But those trees, while we did an assessment on those trees with our arborist, they are most definitely in decline. They've definitely suffered damage previously from gall wasp infestation, from improper pruning methods, but they aren't in such a poor shape that we would recommend removing them at this time. They are providing important wildlife habitat value, and even a dying tree provides very important ecological services. So we would not propose to remove those trees at this time. We're only proposing to remove these 2 trees that are obstructing sight lines to the pier.
Okay, so really what I'm circling around here is we would like the issue of topping going forward. I mean, I don't know where all that topping has occurred and is I presume it's continuing to occur, and I presume it will continue to occur in the future.
There's no current proposal to do any pruning or additional management to other trees other than the 2 that we're proposing to flush cut. So there's no proposal here for additional vista management. It's really, the proposal here is to manage these 2 trees by flush cutting for very specific sight line from the deck to the pier.
All right, so there is
no other pruning is proposed.
Okay, yeah, so there's no view corridor being requested, nor, to your knowledge, has there been one ever approved?
I can't say what was approved previously under the previous ownership, but there has not been any request for vista pruning related to the reconstruction of the house under the current ownership.
Well, I think we probably need to comb back through, there are at least 2 previous projects in recent memory. There was the pool mitigation, and then there was more mitigation for the house, and also, but then I found another map here that shows some mitigation. I'm not exactly sure what that one there is for.
I think that was for the pool.
That's for the pool, but then this one here, I think that one's for the pool. Anyway, and there's lots of previous projects here with lots of mitigation areas, and of course we can't see them all in one spot, but I do think we ought to figure out whether or not there was ever a view corridor approved, such that going forward we know that any topping is not allowed. So that's probably more on us than on you, Teresa.
Mm-hmm.
So back to the mitigation area and the mitigation areas that also exist on the property. The previous one, or maybe the previous 2, also had split rail fences involved, at least the plan showed them. And so I'm just wondering whether or not you need to reconfigure split rails that are already there, or at least should always already be there, to connect with the new split rails that your plan shows.
So this does connect. So if you see it says single rail fence to delineate vegetated buffer, that's left over from the previously approved
Okay, all
planting
right.
plan from November 2021, and that was the mitigation plan for the proposed swimming pool.
Okay,
So that mitigation runs from the southwest side of the property, which is up between number 87 and where that fence runs to the north on that side, north-south, northwest, southeast on that side, and then kind of creates a little bit of a semicircle that comes around to the south, and then we're proposing to continue that. So we're filling in, there's a triangle there that's shown as shaded in green on this current plan that we're looking at here. And that directly abuts what was previously approved
okay.
in that area that's all contained within the
Yeah,
fence.
I'm seeing that now as I flip back and forth between the plans. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'll hold off for now. Jan looks like she's,
Well, it's
raising
raising the same question we've been dealing with all day. So we have a project here that's been permitted. There are open orders for the construction of the house. I think the pool was done was that an amendment must have been an amendment or a separate order? An amendment.
I think an amendment, yeah.
So we do have the open order, and once the mitigation is not yet complete on that. One thing I'd like from Teresa would be, just so we don't have to click back and forth, could it be possible to show on one single plan all the mitigation areas so we can see how they interact?
We can absolutely do that. And actually, if I was able to share my screen, I could show that to you right now. We specifically took that off the plan for this submission simply because we didn't want to confuse what area we were proposing for mitigation now.
Yep.
But we can certainly provide one that shows both of those put together so you could see the continuous nature of the mitigation.
That would be
planting.
great. That would be
Yep.
great. And then I'll leave it to Nikki to figure out what we need to do administratively to issue another order.
Well, it's not, the previous one is not expired, so that helps a little bit. So they still can work under that order to get the mitigation done for that project, and then we can issue this one. And I don't see a problem with that. And
I thought it was DEP's policy that we couldn't have two open orders on the same property.
The policy is 2 open orders for the same project.
The same project.
Because in DEP's explanation, it's one in their policy directives, is that back in the 80s, they had experiences where project would go through the permitting process and get denied, and during the appeal process, the applicant would file another notice of intent for the same project.
Try again.
Try again.
Okay. As long as we don't have a problem having that, that's fine.
but just while we're talking about merging these mitigation plans, there's another mitigation plan. It's labeled access, path, restoration.
Oh, right. As part of the pool, we were anticipating getting the permit for putting the dock on the south side of the property. So Teresa left a 4-foot wide path, I think on the pool permitting plan, which I don't know if we need anymore.
That's correct. We were anticipating that the pier being moved to more of the center of the property. That was the goal previously. So we did leave a path through there to allow access to that pier that is no longer necessary.
Well, I'm actually, the one I'm looking at, I guess I would have to share it, but it's dated February 22, access restoration plan, blue flags.
Yep.
It shows mitigation where the current
Ask Nikki if you can share.
existing pier is.
Yes, yeah. So when we were here for the pool, we showed the removal of the path because we were anticipating, because we only want to do the mitigation once, and so we showed that area being closed up.
Oh, that one's not going to happen then?
And now it's not going to happen.
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah, so, yeah, I recall that. So it was a path, the new path was going to be created and the old path was going to be restored, but now the old path is going to stay in the same spot, so they're not going to do the
Okay,
new.
so it's,
That's correct. project.
We had started on that. Was that withdrawn, or how do we, with the pier in the sub?
Well, this is the same
It's the same
application.
Is it the
order.
same? Okay,
Kept getting
okay.
continued, yep.
So there's just
Yeah.
a revision to that one.
Yes, that started back in February.
Okay.
February 23rd.
Yeah, and if we could see the combined mitigation plan, at first I thought you were putting trees where there are already trees from the previous one, but I think maybe not. It'll be more clear once we have a combined plan.
Correct. And I think one thing that we could also do to clarify is make sure that this plan has a revision date. So we have a previous plan that was submitted and then with a revision date of 8/23/22, which is the plan that we're looking at now.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So questions about existing stuff?
Thank you. David, I have a couple of questions about the pier project. So looking at the plan, the seasonal elements are the two that are separated by the darker line at the end, so the one stops just below, I don't know, at about elevation -1, around there. Those are the two seasonal portions?
This,
Or do I have that?
it would be easier to describe the permanent sections. So starting way up at the bottom of the ramp, we have access stairs that go up and over the pier.
Yep.
From there seaward, the first two sections we're proposing to keep year-round. That goes right to the mean high water mark. That way, that would prevent, because there's now going to be a seasonal pier, this will ensure that the installers are going in the right direction when they put it back in the spring. So everything else, besides the first two sections, 20 feet, more or less, will be seasonal. So
that's, how many feet is that about? I mean, it looks like
it will
it's,
be the entire 118 feet that's below.
is all seasonal, wow,
All seasonal.
okay.
Yeah, so like I said, just the first two sections, so the installers have something to go by in the spring to put them.
Okay, can you put that on the plan?
Yeah, I'll
Indicate
make it
which parts
clearer,
are
yeah.
permanent and which parts are seasonal? So I saw the reference to storage of the seasonal, but given how much there is to store, it's
I
not
think in
gonna
my
be room
narrative,
on
it
top
did-
of the permanent to put them.
That was one of our options, is because the first two sections are permanent, we'd be able to store the bents there. The floats would be taken up the river and removed at one of the landings. I know it was an issue when we first filed it. I think Nikki sent me a picture of the derelict sections that were on the beach. And looking back at the Google Earth images, the previous owner historically stored all the sections right on the edge of the salt marsh, so that will not happen anymore.
Okay. Well, you can stack them up on top of the permanent?
We
or
could,
take
not
them out?
everything, but a lot of it, we probably can.
And then the rest will be taken off-site?
Yeah,
Or
or off-site or stored above the floodplain, what we would recommend. We really haven't worked out the details, but I think a lot of these installation companies are getting used to the requirement of bringing it to a landing and storing it in an upland location.
So when you say the floats are going to a landing and stored, where would that?
Right now, the owner is contracting with Oyster River Boatyard, so it's just up the road, up the river.
Okay. And they'll store it there on site?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, given the time of year they come out, they could probably just go down Jericho Lane to store them in the yard up top.
You can float them right down
Yeah.
on a barge. Speaking of which, so when this is, the construction access is going to be from the riverside?
Yes.
On the pieces we brought in on a barge?
Yeah, but.
So when you said before that the old floats used to bottom out at certain tides, these are, you're gonna be.
There's only one float now. on the
Yeah, but I'm
outboard
just
end
talking
at
about
the-
bringing in the pieces for the pier construction and floats.
Yeah, what I've seen the contractors do is use the float as a barge and put some of the sections on that and float it to a landing. Like I said, we're hoping to store a majority of the sections on the permanent section of the pier. So I don't think there'll be a lot of boat traffic or barge traffic on the days that they're installing it or removing it, because they'll have the new float, which will be 2 sections, and I think they can get a lot of materials on those 2. And
Okay, but we would also want to put in the order, conditions that this work be done at appropriate tide
yeah,
cycles, so that there's no risk of the float bottoming out when it's coming in to.
Oh, the typical DEP requirement that barge, a true construction barge can't bottom out at
Yep,
low water, yeah.
yep,
Yep, that's understandable and
Okay.
expected, yes.
yeah, okay. And since you're coming right, this is going right through the marsh, so do you have particular provisions to protect the marsh?
That's one of the issues with seasonal piers, is that you gotta trample them twice a year. These guys are getting pretty good with getting them in and out, so they're not there for an extended period of time. So they're only working in the footprint of a bent during the 20 minutes to a half an hour it takes to drive that one bent in. I did put a provision in the narrative that plywood might be required. Obviously, the plywood would have to be taken up during the tide cycle and not left overnight.
Right.
That has worked in the past to prevent.
Okay.
But usually you see a lot of damage when you're rebuilding a permanent pier, because they're usually more substantial, like when these 10 by 10s went in, and I'm sure it damaged quite a bit of salt marsh vegetation, but it all looks good now. But that was probably 20 years ago when it was rebuilt.
Right, so we'll ask for photos of the current condition of the marsh and then photos.
Would you want that every year, though?
No, we'd
okay.
like to see the current, with the pre-construction.
Okay.
And then after construction. And so the support posts are 4x4s?
Yes.
So I noticed you say that jetting won't be allowed, so what is the construction protocol?
They'll be driven.
Driven.
Yeah.
What's the difference between jetting and driving? I don't know,
So
you guys have to know.
basically jetting is a water pump with a hose and a pipe, and you blow a hole in the salt marsh and push the sections down to get them to the depth you need to be, whereas driving them, it would be basically hammering them into the ground.
Is that done by a machine, or is that done?
It's a machine.
What kind of machine is that?
It's basically, it's a
driver?
pneumatic hammer that
Yeah.
gets set up on top of the section.
And where is that sit to do this?
It'll be in the boat or on the barge.
Okay,
And some installers actually work from the landward side and set the equipment up on the pier and get the section in, put the deck on, move everything down, and leapfrog
right,
out.
I've seen that, and
Yeah,
so
that-
you haven't yet
this-
selected the installer and.
Well,
the
it'll be
actual-
most likely be Oyster River Boatyard,
Right,
and I
oh,
didn't
okay.
get the details from them
Okay.
on the installation.
Okay, yeah, they've done, we saw, when they did their, they replaced one of their piers, right? We had that protocol, so that worked out fine. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
And I can request the exact protocol at the pre-construction meeting.
All right, anyone else?
I got a few. David, now the 118 feet, that's permanent, or is that?
Seasonal.
Seasonal.
Only 20 feet or so is going to be permanent. We're not going below the mean high water mark with any of the permanent sections.
Okay. And the decking, that's going to be wood?
Yes.
And the spacing is going to be okay for sunlight penetration?
We were going kind of the max, 3/4 of an inch.
What is there now, do you know?
I don't, but I don't think it's 3/4 of an inch. I think it's less than that.
Okay, and the marsh is still surviving?
It's in
Fine.
very good shape.
Yeah. And I have a couple of questions for Teresa. The shed, or maybe you, David, the shed, is that going to be up on piers? Or
Yes,
is it?
so we're going to use the precast concrete diamond piers, which all you have to do is do a little leveling pad and then drive the spikes through it, and that'll be sufficient to keep it from tipping over in a storm, because it's above the floodplain line.
So it's going to be above grade,
Yep.
like enough so that
one-
vegetation can grow and so forth?
Not enough for vegetation to grow, but on one side, it'll be, probably 4.5 feet, almost 5 feet off the ground, and the other, the westerly corner would be right there, probably only less than a foot above ground.
So critters could run underneath there
Oh,
and
yeah.
so forth?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And I got a couple of questions for Teresa. The red cedars on the northeast side of the house, when the pool was installed, they inadvertently cut some trees down, and we asked for replacement trees, and if I'm not mistaken, Bill Riley was here at the meeting, and he said that that they could plant trees on that side of the property. And was that done?
We actually did provide mitigation for the loss of those trees in the form of planting on the western, so sort of southwestern property line between number 87 and number 20. So we had previously provided mitigation for those trees that were removed, and that was approved on the plan dated. Sorry, I'm looking at two computers at once here. The plan, it was originally dated November 17th, 2021, revised December 15th, 2021.
Okay, so you planted some natives on that side, on that property line?
Exactly. Yep, there were seven amelanchiers planted on that southwestern property line between 87 and 20.
Okay, thank you.
Obviously on 20 Jericho, yeah.
Okay, so these will be new cedars planted on that end?
Exactly. There are no trees currently in that location.
Okay. And the trees that you flush cut, obviously they're going to regrow, regenerate, and you're just going to let them grow like that?
We'll let them grow like that. They'll probably be maintained at a 6 to 8 foot height and just be managed in that form. So they'll continue to provide some habitat value, but they'll be managed more in a shrub form.
Okay.
I thought they were going to be.
And that's it. That's all I had. Thank you.
Oh, I guess I misunderstood, Teresa. I thought by flush cutting, they would be murdered. So
No, they will be allowed to regenerate, yes.
they will be reborn, but you'll then be topping them.
Well, we'll be pruning them, which is different. So
Pruning, yes, okay.
right, so maintaining them in a shrub form. So they'll come back in a multi-stemmed shrub form and they'll be maintained as in that shrub form.
Okay, all
They'll
right.
never be big, tall trees again.
Oh,
No, they
Do we
will
need
not
a new
be
species
canopy trees
called
again.
Oak tree shrub?
Oak shrub.
oak shrubs.
They're all over Chatham.
Okay. So I think we'll probably need in the order specific language to talk about that. They'll be flush cut into oak shrubs and maintained as oak shrubs.
4 to 6 feet? Is that what you said? 6 to 8. 6 to 8?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, yes. So what we're planting directly around them in that area is, forgive me, I'm going back and forth between screens because I have to blow it up so big. But we've got in there mainly bayberry that we're planting directly around that, along with winterberry holly. So we would imagine those shrubs will get to be easily 6 feet tall. So we would be managing the oaks around the same height.
But not touching the ones, just to be clear, not touching the ones that are getting planted, just the 2 oaks.
Just those 2 oaks that are showing the red X's on this plan. And we very specifically looked at that, and they're just right in the sight line to the pier from the house.
What are they're in a little, I don't know, cluster of other vegetation. What are the other trees around them? I wasn't able to get down that far down the bank because I wasn't going to climb down that pool wall. But so what are those other things?
So it's mainly bayberry, and there is some scrub oak in there, which scrub oak naturally stays in a lower form, more of a shrub-like form.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So nothing there is going to go tall.
No, correct.
Okay.
Well, all right. For the flush-cut oaks, would it be better to murder them and then plant shrubs that don't have to be maintained and provide perhaps better value?
Ideally, yes. That is certainly another option and something that we often recommend. It's really going to depend on frankly, on the commission's thoughts to that. So we could certainly flush cut them and treat them so that they don't regenerate or don't resprout, and then plant a couple of additional shrubs in that area.
What happens to their root systems?
The root systems will just naturally biodegrade.
How long will that take?
Probably decades. So the root systems would remain in place, and they'll just naturally break down and biodegrade. If you've looked at any tree that's been flush cut that hasn't been ground or the stump been pulled, you'll see signs of that stump as it naturally biodegrades for literally many years.
No, I have some in my yard that look like that from decades ago, and the stump is still there, although it's deteriorating. Right. No, my question is basically about, would there be room to plant shrubs, native shrubs, if you flush cut these and did not let them regenerate?
I think we can plant around. So obviously the canopy and the trunk, once we flush cut, we'll be able to sort of plant the shrubs directly around those cut stumps. Mm-hmm. So similar to what we've done at 915 Old Queen Anne, if you recall that site. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, in your professional opinion as an ecological restoration specialist, what do you think adds greater value to the environment? Which approach?
Obviously, I think continuing to try and manage a tree into a shrub is probably the least appropriate way to manage a tree. I'm not going to say the least appropriate. The least appropriate way to manage a tree is to continually top it and try and call it a tree and maintain it as a canopy tree while it's being topped. It's definitely would benefit. It'd be more beneficial to plant something that's going to not be pruned in the future. Maintaining a tree as a shrub is difficult, and it requires a lot of pruning in order to do that.
Yeah, I would think that's what I would say if I were asked that question. So I feel uncomfortable enabling continual topping of a tree. So we have had trees removed and replaced with shrubs that don't have to be topped. We've allowed that before. Mm-hmm. I would say not just 2 shrubs to replace 2 trees, but perhaps more shrubs if there's room.
Right. We are proposing to plant in that area of all of the 46 native shrubs that we're proposing. There, it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like we've got 6 that we're proposing in the area of those 2 oak trees. So we could certainly plant, 4 more
Yeah,
in that area.
yeah, just kind of fill it up.
Okay,
That makes more sense to
It
me.
makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
okay, perfect.
as long as you say a few words over the tree as you kill it.
Thank you for your
We will
service.
certainly, we can certainly do that.
Okay, anything else? Where are we? Long and winding road with this, but what do we need? We're gonna have a little revision, I guess, to the mitigation plan, and also we're gonna, I don't know, will your revision just contain the other mitigation areas as well, or just depict them?
Yeah, we'll put that on the plan and we'll just hatch it or color it differently
Yeah,
so
right.
that you can tell what was previously approved and what's currently being proposed.
Yeah. What else did we talk about?
Marking what part was seasonal versus,
Oh, yeah, the
Permanent.
more, what's happening with the pier and dock off-season, yeah.
I think that was,
All this discussion, and that's all we had, okay.
yeah, a lot of it will be addressed in conditions.
Oh, yeah, a lot of notes here about conditions.
But I'm thinking if we get those 2 plan revisions by this time next week, we could probably have it on
10-5.
for 10-5.
Wow.
Yep, we can do that.
Okay.
Well, at this point, we could always just go to the working meeting or do you want to see it one more time?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we do have a week off. So you would have a little more time than maybe just 1 week, but then go, yes, to the work
Yeah, to the
session,
work-
Go to
which is
work
10-5,
session and-
yeah. I don't think we
What-
need to see anything else again.
And
Well, you can see it at the work session. If
is
it's
there
not-
any risk to doing that before zoning has heard it?
I don't think so.
We had
When I
preliminary.
talked to them, they
yeah.
said that they consider this a reconstruction.
Oh, that's right, you said she already gave you the
Yeah.
signal, that's okay.
Okay,
And-
if ZBA doesn't go along with this, we're not doing anything. So we'll get the floats back sitting on the
Yeah.
bottom.
And they think it's basically an improvement because it's off the property line instead of going onto the neighbor's property, so.
Yeah,
From my vibe that I got, they will be fine with this
yep.
proposal.
So, yeah, work session, where we can, if anything pops out of the new mitigation planting plan, we can discuss it there.
Okay,
Make a motion that we continue 20 Jericho Lane to the work session on October 5th, 2022 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
A roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
and Mary may not be with us, or is she with us?
Nope.
She said she had to leave, so she's gone. All right, so I vote aye.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next notice of intent is 40 Gamies Lane, the Glenview Trust Company, trustee of the Irrevocable Grandchildren's Trust, map 15B, parcel 74A, SE 103567, proposed house addition and associated site improvements.
Good afternoon. For the record, Sean Riley, Coastal Engineering. With me is Jennifer Crawford from Crawford Land Management. If you remember, the last time that we met was before the Zoning Board of Appeals. The commission had written a letter to the zoning board stating that the project was one that could be conditioned for approval. Just to refresh your memory on what the project is, we have a portion of the existing house on the left side of the screen that we will be raising and replacing with a flood compliant addition. There is a minor expansion of the footprint. The area is shown in gray.
Wait a minute, we don't see anything.
You're not seeing my screen?
No.
I'm sorry, let me just, let's try that again. How about now?
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go. Sorry about that. So this portion of the house is the portion that's to be raised and replaced with a flood compliant structure with these minor additions to the footprint. The existing paved driveway is to be removed and reconfigured with this portion of the driveway being pervious, a pea-stone parking court. The planning board had requested that the portion that was within the Inland Conservancy District be pervious as well. So the plan that you're going to see has shifted. We have not submitted this to you as we're still working out some details with the client. But the plan that we do submit will have this portion converted to that pea-stone pervious section as it's within the Inland Conservancy District. The commission also asked that we visit the idea of putting in a rain garden within the area that is of pavement that is to be removed. That portion of the turnout, the little turnout parking area that I'm pointing to here is to be removed. And the commission asked that we visit the idea of putting in a rain garden. So we've added a rain garden to the plan. We're working out the details and the specifications with the client. We brought on Jennifer Crawford to help us with the specifications of the plantings within that rain garden. So we are still working out the details with the client as it's coming down the driveway, and it's pretty much the first thing that you see as you come into the property. So it's very important for them that we get this right. So with that, I'll open it up to any additional questions that you may have.
Okay, Sean. Well, since we haven't seen the materials, it's a bit difficult to have questions or
Yeah.
even have a discussion. So, just from on the face of it, it sounds like that's what we asked for, so that's good. But you're still working out the details, and we haven't seen anything. Nothing's in our hands.
Yep. So, I mean, we could continue either to the 28th or preferably would be to the work session. We will have the rain garden and the details worked out, and we can have that submitted to you a week prior to that work session for the order, if that works.
So,
But we won't have
does not work.
discussed
Yeah.
it. We won't have discussed it.
Yeah,
Continue to
the rain garden is likely
Yeah.
to generate some questions, just because
So I think
it's likely
October
to.
Yeah, I think the October.
14th?
Yeah, is it the 14th?
And
We can't
especially,
get off the 28th.
especially since you're actually still in the process of working it out.
October 12th.
So we can't continue to the 28th?
We're getting a little full for the 28th.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5 continuances, because we've gotten 5 new ones.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
then we're full.
Yeah, I would say that the 12th makes the most sense. And then I'm fine with not say we approve everything, I'm fine with going to the next meeting to approve an order instead of waiting to a work session.
would
Just to
be-
get it out a couple
yeah,
of
that would be
weeks
great.
earlier. If
Right.
That would be great.
Okay, so we'll do
That would be
the
appreciated.
October 12th then for now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I have one question, Bob.
Okay.
Sean, the catch basin, that's going to be discontinued where that rain garden's going to go?
That will be incorporated into the rain garden. What we do is we typically elevate that catch basin to about 6 inches above the ground level. So basically the first flush as it comes down the driveway enters into the rain garden and then is absorbed by the plants and the uptake of the plants within that rain garden. And any larger storm event that
Like an
comes in
overflow.
will overflow into that catch basin and be infiltrated into the ground.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So I guess we need a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we continue 40 Gamies Lane to October 12th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know that you have Tulipy Run next, and I just didn't see on the agenda that, that it was continued. I just want to make sure before I jump off that those are in fact continued.
Yes, to September 28th.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
I guess we have to continue the Tillipies.
Yes, so we have 75 Tilipy Run, Chatham Sea Breeze LLC, map 14A3, parcel N131, SC 103547. 59 Tilipy Run, 59 Tilipy Run Trust, map 15A3, parcel 1 N137, SC 103545. And 27 Tilipy Run, New Milford Realty Corp., map 15A3, parcel N137, SE 103546, revisions to the rock revetment and elevation extensions. They have requested, so Greg Berman got his final report to us yesterday. So they are just continuing for, or requesting a continuance to September 28th for everybody to have time to review the report. Unfortunately, Greg did respond that he would not be able to be present at the meeting to answer any questions because he's out of town in a no Wi-Fi type place, camping or something like that. So I will get everyone that report into the Dropbox as soon as possible so that if you have any questions, we can maybe compile an email
Written
list
questions.
to Greg
Yeah.
Okay.
before he runs out of Wi-Fi. But yes, they are requesting to 9/28.
So you'll remind us by when we need to send written questions?
I will put a reminder in my calendar right now for whatever date you would prefer. So it's 9/28, I would say.
Well, before he leave, to give him time before he leaves.
Yeah, so I'll put it in probably sometime tomorrow, so if maybe by the 21st you could have looked over it and seen if you have any specific questions for him would be helpful, and then I'll shoot him out an email.
On the 21st, and so he has
Yeah.
time to get back, because he has to look at them and answer them too. So, okay.
Make a motion that we continue 75 Tilipy Run, 59 Tilipy Run, and 27 Tilipy Run to September 28th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
All right. That wraps up the notice of intents. So we're on to the certificate of compliance for 498 Shore Road. James and Lisa McGonigal, map 16G, parcel A6, SE 102707, deck modifications, additions, screen porch, and landscaping. If you recall, we've been out there several times in the last year that I've been on the agent, and lots of open projects there and everything. So as you've seen, the property we've issued other certificates of compliance as well. So I do recommend approval for this one.
Make a motion that we approve the certificate of compliance for 498 Shore Road.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
All right, we have the minutes for July 27th and August 3rd. Elise,
I was not there.
okay, yes, I thought you had I thought that was, okay, yeah, so I will have Crystal change that. And other than that, I didn't hear from anybody else, but if you have comments, go ahead.
Yeah,
For the 27th, I think we need to add at 32 Sea Pine Road that the deck becoming a porch resulted in 90 square foot increase in coverage.
Increased coverage of 90 square feet.
Yeah. That's what I had.
for 50C change, I would like to revise where it says, ask the applicant to hire two specific companies.
Oh, no.
To-
No, we
to
don't do
say-
Yeah.
Ask the applicant to consider hiring a restoration specialist so that unpermitted view pruning would not be necessary. Anybody else? I guess we could just look at the other one and before we vote.
I got some.
On this one, or,
Yeah.
okay.
75 Tilapy Run, and, I'm sorry, let's see.
Yeah,
I
70.
guess it's 59 Tilapy Run.
Yeah, they were together.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. On well, on the last paragraph,
Mhm.
it says, let's see, there is an annual, second to the last sentence. There is an annual nourishment of 160 cubic yards, should read at
Oh, yeah.
59 Tilapy Run, and 136 cubic yards at 75 Tilapy Run, instead of on.
Yep.
And then go all the way to 98 and 100 Oyster Pond Furlong.
Yep.
And, let's see, a few sentences down, it says, abandoning the septic system.
Yep.
Should read, abandoning the septic systems.
Yep.
And then proposing an air conditioning unit with a generator, and then next sentence, since the product was available, cross out so.
Yep.
They went ahead and installed it over, and then installed it and placed it over the property line, again, cross out so.
Yep. And are now.
And then maybe period, and property line period, and then they are now working with zoning on where to move it.
Okay.
It's another sentence. Do you see that?
Yep, got it.
Okay. And then down at the bottom, the last sentence, area abutting the mitigation area is invaded with invasives, so we'll consider seeding and moving the, instead of bush,
Mm-hmm.
native blueberry mitigation elsewhere.
Okay, got it.
And then 50 Sea Change Lane, first sentence, second sentence. It says view corridor has been established. I just crossed out corridor and said, and maybe a view has been established, not necessarily an official view corridor.
And, yeah, and you could say an unapproved view corridor.
Yeah, yeah,
Or something like that.
yep.
And then the sentence after that, the mitigation includes a black oak and several inkberry shrubs,
Yeah.
not bushes. And then, let's see, 209 Seaview Street. The,
Wait, where's that? Where's that?
That's the next one.
Oh, okay, yep.
at the end of the paragraph, the third sentence from the end,
Mm-hmm, the invasive.
the invasives on the existing lower T will be removed. And that's all I have.
Okay, I guess we can go to the next one. August 3rd. Oh, the, no. The last item, the item where we talk about the new regulations right before we adjourn, right before materials of catwalk the price, I would insert the word proposed new regulations.
Also, was Cheryl an associate or a full member at that point? Because it says she's an associate.
Right around then.
that was like her last associate meeting. 'Cause
Was
I
it?
think they voted her in
I think they voted her in August, so, yeah, we can just double check, but.
Then July 27th, it has her as just a commissioner. And August 3rd has her as an associate.
Okay, one of them's wrong
One of
then.
them wrong.
So, yeah,
Yeah, I'll double check the dates on that.
I was assuming the first was correct.
But while you bring that up, and I'm looking up here, it indicates that William Doherty was absent. He was
Yeah.
already gone by August.
Yes.
He's out in
Yeah,
June.
he was out at the end of June, so, okay.
I have one thing, towards the end, any unforeseen items that may come before the commission. The first sentence, erosion control for large piles of soil was discussed, not
okay.
dirt.
Exactly so. I cannot use the word dirt in my household. I'm
Me
always-
neither, I
I'm always
can't.
corrected.
Nope.
Soil.
And now I correct him when he uses bushes instead of shrubs, and I get back.
Dirt is only what you find behind your ear.
And in your nails. I have a bit of that right now.
All right, does that conclude our edits for the minutes? Sounds like it does.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of July 27th, 2022, and August 3rd, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
So Nikki, those are in the Dropbox marked up, and I highlighted a least to remind you to check whatever date. And they're all good to go.
All right.
Very good.
I have
We're
no other.
done. We're,
Well, we have to adjourn.
oh yeah, that's right.
Oh, wait a minute. Can't we do something else?
I can think of
What do you
something, I
wanna
guess.
do?
Go home.
I want to hit the road.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
I unanimously vote aye. And we all have